that opinion in and of itself shows why he's not reaching out for help.
Exactly.
He thinks this is his problem, and he probably fears being cut off by a...
No.
Who's that?
I mean, if he thinks that about his brother, then he probably thinks the same thing would happen to him. So I'm not going to say anything.
That's really sad. And so
really
lonely.
Because of how he was raised and abused, he perceived emotional problems and mental illness to be a form of weakness.
I'm live. I've been going live every day.
He probably felt as though his symptoms would have really further derailed any future success for him. So instead of seeking help for the clear growing depression and anxiety and distorted thinking that he was having, because it was a lot more severe than I think he would have handled on his own. And everything was far from fine. Entering the new year, he was struggling academically, professionally, personally, literally in every way you could struggle. But he continued to invest as much as he could into his marriage. At that point, like we were talking about before, Kathy was the primary earner in the family. That was also a big blow to his ego, especially at that time. And despite the fact that he outwardly said he adored his wife and acted as if he adored his wife, they had hit a rough patch in their marriage. And the previous summer, Kathy had actually confided to a friend that she was thinking about divorce. Wow. According to her friend Fran Morgan, Kathy said Charles was, quote, a perfectionist and expected too much from her, which is his dad. And as an example, Kathy told her friend Charles would, quote, wipe his hand behind pictures hanging on the wall looking for dust. And on at least 3 occasions, he had lost control of his violent temper and hit her. So he's taking notes from his father. 100%. So that's why I say, like, he says he adores her.
And also, motherfucker, you're at home. Yeah, there's dust behind those pictures.
Just the fucking picture.
That's on you, baby. Yeah. She's out making the bacon. Going to school. Yeah, getting the bacon.
And now you make it.
Yeah.
And in early March 1966, Charles faced another huge stressor because he got a call from his mother on the night of March 2nd saying his father, CA there, had become very violent and she was afraid of him. Charles anonymously called the Lake Worth Police Department disturbance at the home of CA and Margaret Whitman, telling the dispatcher they're going to kill each other.
Oh, God.
But when an officer arrived at the house, everything was quiet. A short time later, he called the police again, this time saying that his father had, quote, threatened to do bodily harm to his mother and that he was on the way to Florida, but worried something bad would happen before he got there.
Oh, that stress is unbelievable.
It's unclear what actually happened here, but 2 days later, Charlie did succeed in convincing his mother to finally leave his father.
Wow, after all those years.
And she returned back to Austin, Texas with him and settled into an apartment near where Kathy and he were living.
It's also worth noting, because I feel like listening to this story, I'm like, oh, he's probably like in his mid-30s at this point.
Yeah,
he's in his early 20s.
Yeah, he's young.
Like, for anybody that doesn't know the story, he's in his early 20s,
young.
And this is everything he's going through at this point. It's a lot.
Now, Margaret and CA's separation was definitely an additional strain on an already increasingly emotionally fragile Charles.
Yeah.
Although he wasn't exactly hostile, CA made strong and repeated attempts to convince his wife to come home. It was bordering on harassment at that point, especially after what he had done. It's like,
it's like you've been abusive to her your entire marriage.
Yeah. Later, he would say, I'm not ashamed of the fact that I spent $1,000 a month on the phone bill begging her to come back. I kept begging Charlie to come back to me, too. I promised Charlie that if he'd only persuade his mama to come back, I'd swear never to lay a hand on her.
That's also
so
putting it on your
toxic,
child. Yeah. And you have to imagine, I mean, like I was just saying, he's in his early 20s and he was the oldest. So I think there's, and
younger.
Earlier he mentioned one of his brothers ran away from home.
They're younger.
It's like they're experiencing all this firsthand.
Yep.
It's so sad how toxic.
Come on, guys. Let's buy it. Let's go. Yay. Come on, guys. Let's get it popping. Let's buy something. Right? What are we buying? Let's buy something.
To do with your child and their relationship.
He didn't tell you to hit her.
He's not part of your marriage. like,
4 people now.
your child
That
does
the
not
most I've
want
had
to be
is
that way. I have no responsibility to get you two
That's
back
still a lot.
together or figure anything out. That's
on
between you
you,
two.
dog.
And it's like, what the fuck, dude?
And maybe you should have fucking thought one day she was gonna leave if you kept beating her.
Yeah.
Wait,
But you're just mad because she finally hit her breaking point and you lost out on the thing that you like to hit when you're mad.
Exactly.
Like, that's fucked up. Now, at a time when his mental health was clearly deteriorating rapidly, getting drawn into this separation and divorce later would really only make things worse for Charles. Not only would it likely have made him even more paranoid about his own marriage, which was by then in trouble, but he also felt an urge to protect his mother and smooth things over with the whole family because he's the oldest. So the stress had actually become bad enough that Charles did finally start talking to his friends about what he called the, quote, gross disharmony in the Whitman household. In late March, he actually finally sought professional help from the UTA Student Health Center.
Oh, okay.
He attended a 1-hour session with a psychiatrist, a 1 or 2 hour psychiatrist session. When the session ended, the doctor recommended that Charles come back the following week for ongoing treatment and to call if he was in crisis or needed help before then.
Well, that's great. But he never came back. And they can't force you to.
And it should be noted that while it was definitely like he needed to return for help. Like that was part of the, he's an adult, he needs to come back for help. There might have been a reason for him not wanting to come back because according to other students who had seen that same psychiatrist, Dr. Maurice Dean Heatley, around the time of Charles's visit, they reported that he was very unimpressive. He was not a good doctor. His demeanor, his clinical approach, not good. One student, Bill Helmer, said that while he was explaining his marital problems to the doctor, that the doctor, quote, talked on the phone to a driller engaged in the installation of a well on the Heatley Ranch. And then he just wrote this guy a prescription for Librium. Okay. So, as much as it was definitely, he's an adult, he needs to, if he's going to go back, he should go back, but it's like,
or seek alternative.
That could have possibly been the reason he didn't go back.
Yeah, if that's your first experience, I guess I can understand not having a lot of faith in that approach.
But in interviews with the authorities directly after the shootings that would later occur, those closest to Charles would actually deny noticing any neurological deficits or evidence of a disability in his state of consciousness. So nobody was reporting that, like, they noticed, like, something.
That's what I
He was,
wrote.
like, disassociating
Forgetting
things
things and disassociating things
My
like
little
that.
weed pipe, my one.
But that wasn't entirely true. I don't know why people were reporting that. Because in the months leading up to that summer, Charles had clearly been demonstrating some odd behavior. Some, like, disordered thinking. Some of this definitely could have been attributed to what had been prescribed to him in the spring, which is like amphetamines. And he ended up becoming addicted to them.
Was that when he went to the psychiatrist?
A few days where I had all the drugs in the world we want.
Yeah.
And then you just get amphetamines.
Exactly.
Jesus Christ.
And he became addicted to them. But there were other symptoms. Like, he had some increasingly bizarre beliefs about God and spirituality that were, like, becoming more and more bizarre. And he had.
Is there a jacket that you're gonna like throw away or you
lack
don't
of
need? No.
inhibition when it came to talking about things.
Because I don't like this Tommy.
Okay. Like, he was inappropriate. You know? And
If you don't, it's fine. That works fine.
Every once in a while,
This is cool though. Where'd you get this one?
Like, he would sometimes, like, make a crazy comment or something.
I know, it's so cool. It's like a I can't even name it.
My sex life kind of thing when, like, I've known you for.
Plus, I think we're gonna see the groundhog's gonna see his shadow early. In my personal opinion.
Morgan told investigators that the last time he'd spoken with Charles, they'd spent hours, quote, talking about philosophy, religion, marriage problems, sex, etc. And Charles had some way out ideas about those subjects.
Right?
Really? Yeah, and he wasn't afraid to share them. According to Morgan, Charles was uncharacteristically
What's
open
the
about
orange
his
stuff
marriage
today?
problems.
What's the
He
orange
seemed,
stuff?
as he said, quote, oversexed, and talked at length about how much he hated his father. Which were all things he just wouldn't have talked about before. Like, wouldn't have gone into that much of detail about. There were also other strange changes in his behavior as well. That spring, he had spoken extensively with instructors about his depression and told several of them that he planned to drop out of school at the end of the semester, which previously he was, like, very committed to completing this degree. Like, that was one of his main goals. So these type of comments would have definitely seemed strange.
Yeah,
like somebody would have been like, wow, that's a weird change and we should look at that. And also that spring, after an argument with Kathy, he left the house and was just missing for an entire day. Kathy didn't know where he was, and he returned the following day.
I do. It was out of character.
Yeah, very out of character. Like, he hadn't done that before.
Yeah.
On the afternoon of July 31st, 1966, Charles and Kathy visited the home of John and Fran Morgan around 4 p.m. And John noticed then that Charles, quote, acted different and was extremely quiet.
Okay.
About 2 hours later, the couple left the Morgans. Charles drove his wife to work at the telephone company, and she was scheduled to work until about 10 p.m.
Okay.
So she was working
got
really hard.
Jobs.
Kathy's supervisor later confirmed that she did finish her shift and left work a little after 10 p.m. And it was the last time anyone saw her alive.
Oh, no.
Now, after dropping Kathy off at work, Charles returned home, sat down at his typewriter, and he wrote, quote, I don't understand what it is that compels me to type this letter. Perhaps it is to leave some vague reasons for the actions I've recently performed.
Oh.
Now, the letter was dated and time-stamped 6:45 p.m., which means he hadn't done anything yet. But this indicates that whatever reservations he might have had about his plans that he was going to carry out, they were gone by this time when he sat down at the typewriter. He went on to write, I don't really understand myself these days. I'm supposed to be an average, reasonable, and intelligent young man. However, lately, I cannot recall when it started. I've been a victim of many unusual and irrational thoughts. In March, when my parents made a physical break, I noticed a great deal of stress. I talked with a doctor once for about 2 hours and tried to convey to him my fears that I felt some overwhelming violent impulses. So he shared that with the doctor.
And then the doctor prescribed him amphetamines.
Mm-hmm.
Good.
Yeah.
I never saw the doctor again, and since then I've been fighting my mental turmoil alone, and seemingly to no avail. After my death, I wish that an autopsy would be performed on me to see if there are any visible physical disorders. So he was literally being like, something is drastically wrong with me. I can't do this. I don't know why I'm about to do what I'm about to do, but I'm going to. And after I die, which I plan to die today, I want you to find out what's wrong with me. Like, that's a scary series of plans and thoughts.
Yeah.
You know, like, for someone to be so aware of the struggling, but so aware that, like, something is severely wrong with me, but I don't know what it is. I can't imagine that feeling.
No.
And I know a lot of our listeners probably either know people or have felt that way, that you're like, something's wrong with me and I don't know what it is.
Right.
Like, I can't imagine feeling that way. It must be
so out of control.
That's the thing, when you're not in control of your own shit and like you don't feel like you can get in control, that's scary.
It is scary.
Like, I can't imagine that feeling. I really can't. And based on the note left behind, it's obviously clear that he intended to die that day. Either he was going to do it or he was going to have the police do it. But what's not clear here are his reasons for what he said he did next. Killing his mother and his wife.
Oh, he killed his mother too?
Yep. He hadn't done it yet. But he said, it was after much thought that I decided to kill my wife, Kathy, tonight. I love her dearly, and she has been a very fine wife to me. I cannot rationally pinpoint any specific reason for doing this. That's terrifying.
Yeah, it is.
Charles was equally vague about killing his mother. He said, similar reasons provoked me to take my mother's life also. Just like, no reason. I can't pinpoint it.
He just feels compelled.
Now, when he finished writing the note, he went back to the phone company to pick up Kathy a little before, basically at 10.
Oh, and she has no idea.
No idea. They returned home. What's worse is they returned home. A short time later, he got a call from his mother. He left Kathy at home, went to his mother's apartment building, and she met him at the front door. She introduced him to the doorman, Dick Tomlinson, explaining that Charles intended to study while he was here. Just nice little casual combo. The two of them went up to the 5th floor apartment, and once inside, he wasted no time killing his mother. It is unclear exactly what happened, like in what order it all happened, because there was actually no autopsy done on his mother, which I'm a little confused about.
That's strange.
But authorities found a length of black rubber hose at the scene and assumed she was strangled. But there was also a severe injury to the back of her skull, which Gary Laverne notes, quote, is commonly interpreted to be a gunshot wound. But he said no autopsy was performed on Margaret, and those reports cannot be positively confirmed.
Somebody else. Oh, look
he
at
also stabbed his mother in the
trying to
chest
hit it.
with a large hunting knife.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. So she was either shot, strangled, or stabbed, or all three. Like, she was all those things, but one of the who knows what the cause of death was.
That's insane. I do wonder why she didn't. So I know sometimes people can put it in their will that they don't want an autopsy. So maybe this is obviously complete speculation, but because she had been suffering at the hands of her husband for so long, maybe she was worried that like that might end her life someday, and she didn't want something to happen to him.
Maybe
she wanted him to be like around for the kids.
Yeah, you don't know. But because
that's so strange that they just
that they didn't do an autopsy
on a murder victim.
I also have
that's what blows my mind. It's like what?
like a brand new
think, like,
bottle
9
of
10 times.
So before leaving the apartment, Charles washed his hands, then sat down at the table and wrote a note.
I'm gonna.
He wrote, "I have just taken my
Where are
mother's life. I am very upset over
you're
having
alive.
done it. However, I feel if there is a heaven, she is definitely there now. And if there is no life after, I've relieved her of her suffering here on earth."